Welcome everyone watching online and here in person. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited for what God is going to do in this experience. If you're watching online, come in with your family. And if you're here in person, come grab your seat and set aside all distractions. We know that God has something special for each of us, so we invite you to lean into what He might say to you through this experience. We also ask if you're watching online or if you're here with us in person, take a moment and share the stream with your friends and family. Just find this live stream on our Facebook page and you can hit that share button to put it right on your personal page so many other people can be a part of this experience. As you share it, comment in the chat where you're watching from and how many people are watching with you. And if you're attending online, we can still pray together with you for anything during this experience. All you have to do is enter in your prayer request in the chat portion of this feed. As our family by choice gathers around the city, in person and online, we invite you to join us together in worship.
Good morning, everyone. We're so excited to see you this morning. Let's put our popcorn down just for a little bit. You don't want to finish it yet. And we're just going to worship for a little bit.
All right, let's put our hands together. I'm so excited you're here. We're going to spend a couple minutes worshiping Jesus. Come on, sing this out. When I'm in.
The roughest water, I won't go under, I won't drown. When I'm in, over my head, I know that you won't let me down. When I'm broken and down to nothing, I know that you are always up to something good. I know that you are always up to something good.
everyone says actions speak louder than words, right? But God's word is so powerful that just by his speaking that I love you, I will be there for you. That he stays true to that. He's like no one else. No one else. There's so much peace in him. We can trust him like no one. And I just feel so heavy in the room, just the love that the Father just wants to set on you, on your shoulders. You may be carrying something heavy. You may be burdened with the circumstances and situations that you're going through. But the Father has love. His word says that my yoke is easy, my burden is light. The world's yoke and their burden, that's not easy. But the Father wants to take that from you and put on his love and his burden. That is so easy and light. So I want to invite our life group leaders forward. They are amazing, amazing people who partner with you. They pray with you. They intercede for you. They love you. They want to pray for you. If that is you, if you're in this room and you're like, I just want to encounter that love. I want to feel that easy burden. Make the transaction with the Father. Let him just love on me. Whatever it is, if you need healing in your body, if you need somebody to stand with you in agreement for prayer for something, I want to invite you forward during this next song as we continue to worship together because God is so good. He has freedom for you. lift your voice right now. Whatever's on your heart, I know that the Father cares so much. He says, cast your cares on Him because He cares for you. What is it? Tell Him He's your Father. He loves you so much. There's no love like His. Let's just spend the next few moments just singing to Him, praying to Him, speaking to Him, having a conversation. We love you, Jesus. Thank you so much for worshiping with us. Turn around, say hi to someone, and you can be seated.
No, do not. Please don't try.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses.
Hit it.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
It's a sin to kill a mockingbird. Wax on, wax off.
We're sending you back to the future.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 at the movies. My name is Amy Ashcraft. I'm so happy to get to be here with you today. And I'm sad that you're watching online because you can't really experience the fullness of At the Movies since we cannot show the clips due to copyright issues. But hopefully you can join us next week and you'll be able to see the clips. But guys, this is probably one of my favorite series that we do here because I love movies. I love all kinds of movies. I love the movies that make me laugh. I love the movies that make me think. I love the movies that keep me on the edge of my seat because I don't know which way it's going to turn. And I love movies that make me cry. That may sound so weird, but my oldest brother always said this. He always said, the best movies are the ones that can make you cry. Because any movie can stir your emotions. You know, you can get excited. You can get mad at a character who's, well written. You can feel your emotions. But any movie that moves your emotions enough to make them spill out your eyeballs, that's good screenwriting. I love those movies. But even beyond that, I think my favorite type of movie are the ones that have a message in them that sticks with me forever. I love those. I mean, that's pretty much what Jesus did. Jesus was brilliant. Jesus would take a message and he would wrap it in a story. He was so smart because he knew that most people are like me, and you're going to remember a story way longer than you remember a sermon. He's so smart. It sticks with you. And so many movies today are just modern day parables. They have some great lessons and some great messages hidden inside them. And we're going to talk about one of those today. We're going to be talking about the movie Harriet. John and I saw this movie, I think it was a couple years ago in the theater. And I barely made it through the movie alive. I was bawling my eyes out. I think John was a little bit concerned with me, but it was because Jesus was speaking to me in this movie. See, Jesus will he'll talk to all of us through anything if we will only listen. And so I'm excited that we get to talk about this movie today. We're going to look at the life and story of Harriet Tubman. And it's probably safe to assume that all of us have either heard her name or something about her at some point in our life in school. She is known for being one of the bravest women in history, for doing the unimaginable and the impossible. She had her name written in history books for years, and I think all of us daydream about having our names written in history books, having our names remembered by people. We daydream about being famous, and every one of us want to be remarkable. But very few of us want to go through the experiences of life that make us remarkable. Harriet is a woman who will forever be talked about and learned about in school and held in high regard. Her name is synonymous with being a strong woman who left an indelible mark on the world, but it came at a very high cost. She didn't set out to be remembered in history books. She didn't set out to become famous or even a household name. She didn't even set out to do something noble. She was just trying to survive. Harriet was born Araminta Ross. She wasn't born Harriet. And she was known to people by the name of Minty. Her life was one of pain and disappointment, not because of her own making. See, she was born into slavery. She didn't get a choice in the matter. She and her family endured terrible things at the hands of their slave owners, and promises were made to Minty's mom. Her slave owner told her at the age of 45, you and your children would be set free, but that didn't happen. They were not granted their freedom. In fact, injustice after injustice played out with her family as each one was separated and sold off one by one. Minty could see that nothing in her life was going to change. The slave owners were not going to just let her go. Freedom was not just going to be given to them. See, her life was anything but remarkable. Her life was just one painful moment after another. After it became obvious to Minty that she was next to be sold and separated from her husband and family, she knew she only had one choice, and that was to run. She knew that that would be risky. She knew that the chances of her making it out alive were very slim. But she also knew that if she stayed, being sold further south was worse than death. Living a life of bondage is not living. So in the first clip that we showed to the live congregation, we see that Minty is running for her life toward freedom, and she comes to an impasse. She's now standing on this bridge, and on one side she's trapped by her slave owners, and on the other side she's trapped by these dogs, these bloodhound dogs. Her only chance of freedom was to jump off of this bridge into raging waters below. And her slave owner approaches her and is trying to coax her back off the edge of this bridge. And she looks at him and she says, I'm going to be free or die. And then she jumps. See, Minty wasn't going back. She knew what was behind her. She knew the pain of the beatings. She knew the pain of the separation from the loved ones. The pain of her situation was still fresh on her mind, and the physical scars of the life that she lived was still fresh on her skin. The chance, just the chance that she could live free outweighed the fear of death at that moment. The chance that her life could be different outweighed the fear of the risks that lie ahead of her. I would rather die today trying to be free than live a lifetime a slave to something else. Have any of you ever got to that place where you're tired of being stuck in the pain, stuck in the process, stuck in the monotony of life, enslaved to addiction, enslaved to rage, enslaved to abusive relationships or poverty, enslaved to repeating generational habits and patterns? Have you gotten to the place of saying, I'm going to be free or die? Minty was desperate. She wasn't going back. That life, it wasn't for her. She knew that there was a better way, but she also knew that it was going to be up to her to go and get it, because freedom wasn't going to be given to her. She was going to have to take it. In this clip, the slave owner tries to manipulate her when she is standing on the edge of that bridge. He tries to manipulate her, and he tells her that everyone's crying back home, Minty. Everybody wants you to come back. He told her if she would just come back, he wouldn't sell her. He wouldn't separate her from her husband. They could be a family again. It could be like old times, Minty. This is what you know, Minty. This is your comfort. This is that world out there. It's dangerous. You won't survive out there. Things aren't better out there. Freedom isn't what it looks like, Minty. And just like this slave owner, the enemy tries to fill our head with these lies that keep us stuck in our bondage. He tells us it's too hard. He tells us it's not worth it. He says, once you take a step toward your freedom, the dogs are going to come after you. It's going to get bad. You're going to die out there. He'll make promises to you that he has no intention of keeping because he is a liar. And the truth can always be found in the exact opposite of what the enemy tells you. If he says you aren't going to make it, you can bet your life on the fact that you are not only going to survive, you are going to thrive. If he says what you're trying to do is impossible, the truth is all things are possible to him or her who believes. If he says that God has abandoned you and you're alone, the truth is the Lord is near to all who call on him. He fulfills the desires of those who fear him. He hears their cry and saves them. Our Father says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, and the flames will not set you ablaze. See, when the enemy tells you that you aren't strong enough to leave everything behind, the truth is you are more than a conqueror. But like Minty, we must make the decision that we're going to be free or we're going to die trying. Minty knew that just because she made the decision to do something different, just because she made the decision to make the change in her life, to be free, it didn't mean it was going to be easy. Minty pushed through the hell of the journey. She was beat up, she was weathered, she was tired and hungry, and the journey nearly killed her. But she made it to freedom. In the second clip that we get to show, we see that Minty survives a 100-mile journey to freedom. She made it. And there were people stationed along her journey that helped her get to freedom. And in this clip, we see her finally walk through the doors of a man named William Still. He was a man that led the rescue missions for the slaves, and he helps her get established in her new life. And I love it because in this clip, he looks at her and he says, "Where are the others? Who did you make the journey with?" And she looks at him and she said, "It was just me." And he said, "I don't know how, but do you know that by some miraculous means, you've made it 100 miles to freedom?" 100 miles. I dare say there are some of us that struggle to make it a mile at the track, especially in the Houston heat, right? 100 miles through the rain, the mud, the rivers, the mountains, being chased by dogs and people on horseback. I mean, talk about determination. Talk about keeping freedom as the focus. How many times do you think that Minty thought about giving up as she laid down at night in the grass and in the sticks and in the woods? How many times do you think, you know what, this is too hard, I just need to quit? How many times do you think she weighed the cost of this journey? 100 miles. How many times do you think that the pain of the struggle and the fatigue of the journey started getting to her? But it was well-earned freedom that was marked by a new name. William Still told her that many people who would find freedom would choose to go by a new name, and that she could choose any name that she wanted. And this is where Harriet Tubman was born. She would no longer be known by her past. She would no longer answer to the name that was associated with so much pain. She would no longer be tethered to her identity of the past, but now she had a new name that guaranteed her passage into her future. She was no longer Minty. She was Harriet. She was no longer a slave. She was free. She started fresh, a new life, new job, new opportunities. As Harriet, she had been reborn into freedom. And for 1 year, Harriet was living this new life of freedom, but there was a problem. She still remembered where she had come from. She remembered that there were still others back there that were receiving the beatings and that were being tortured, that were being sold. She remembered there were people still back there. And in this clip, Harriet goes back to the office of William Still to ask him to help her rescue her husband and her family. William looks at her and he says, "You don't understand, Harriet. The rescue of slaves, this operation, it's not easy. And Harriet, you need to understand, you just got lucky. What you did, you just got lucky. It's not that easy. And he gives her all the excuses why he and his team can't go rescue her family and all the reasons why she can't do it either. But all this did was fuel her fire and make her more determined. You see, 1 year before, Harriet had made it 100 miles alone. She did the impossible. A woman who could not read or write, who did not own a map, who did not have any money, made it 100 miles with nothing but God. When Harriet was 13 years old, she suffered a head injury when an overseer threw something and hit her in the head. And although she survived this, she suffered with blackouts and seizures for the rest of her life. When asked about this, Harriet said that God would speak to her during those episodes of seizures and blackouts, and he would guide her throughout her life. See, a woman who could not read the Bible was led by the very voice of God through a disability. God will use all of us, every part of us. He will use our abilities and our disabilities. God will use our triumphs and our trauma. We give him every excuse why he can't use us. We go down the line with all of our reasons. But the truth is this: God will use whatever we let him use. He's waiting on us to allow him to use us. In this clip, Harriet looks back at William and she says this. She says, "Don't you tell me what I can't do. You don't know me." Anybody who knows me knows that that's probably my favorite quote in the entire movie. Don't you tell me what I can't do. You don't know me. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her that she couldn't be free. And she wasn't going to let anyone tell her that other people couldn't be free. She knew what she had done. She knew she made it this far. She knew that God had sustained her in her journey. She knew that she was living in freedom because that God brought her there. So don't tell her what is impossible. So I say to you today, don't you ever let the enemy tell you what you can and cannot do. Don't let your age tell you what you can't do. Don't let your race tell you what you can't do. Don't let your gender tell you what you can't do. Don't let your social status or your education tell you what you can't do, because if God is for you, who can be against you? Anything is possible to him or her who believes. Harriet was not listening to the naysayers. She wasn't having it. She knew that this life of freedom wasn't worth living if she was going to live it alone. She had to go back for the others. She knew that God was telling her to go back. But even obedience to God wasn't going to guarantee a life without pain. What you don't get to see in the next clip is Harriet did go back. She went back for her husband, John. But when she got there, she found out that John was already remarried to another woman. How disheartening. See, her family and her husband had been told that when she jumped from that bridge, she died. They didn't know. They didn't know. They just had to pick up their life the best they could and do and live the best they could without her, because they thought she was dead. No one expected her to survive. But Harriet was alive. She had found freedom. She was living in freedom, and it was wonderful. And now God was sending her back with a message of hope. It was great. But it wasn't. Why, God? Harriet obeys, and she goes back only to be met with more heartache. She obeys God. Why? Why more trauma? Why, God? In this clip, Harriet is distraught after finding out about her husband, and it opens and you see her standing under a tree crying out to God. And she says, "Why, Lord? I listened to your voice. You told me to come and I came." Any of you guys ever said that before? Why, God? I did what you asked me to do. Why are things not working out? God, I pay my tithes, so why is everything breaking down? I obey you. I follow your instructions. I serve, I love, I be the best I can be. Why is everything falling apart around me? God, why did my marriage not work out? Why are my children living crazy lives? Why did I lose my job, God? Why did you allow them to die? Why, God? I thought that when I surrendered to you, everything would be better. I thought all the puzzle pieces would just fall into place. I thought my bills would always be paid. I thought my marriage would turn around. I thought I would no longer have temptation to things that I've struggled with before. Why, God? Harriet was met with pain because Harriet thought she was going back for John. But John is who God used to get Harriet to her purpose. Last week, we were asked the question in Won't You Be My Neighbor? We were asked the question last week, am I willing to allow my plans to be disrupted by purpose? That's what Harriet encountered. See, we like to plan our lives. We like to think that we know what's best for us. We like to think that we know how things should happen and what they should look like. We look at conflict as bad. If we're struggling, it must be bad, right? Something must not be right in our life. If there's pain in our life, it must be bad. Nobody likes pain. We do everything that we can to escape pain. But pain is necessary. Just because we're experiencing trouble doesn't mean that we aren't doing what God asked us to do. Harriet knew she was supposed to go back. She encountered more heartache, but she was supposed to go back. See, God will use our pain to rescue someone else. God will use our pain for purpose. The story of Joseph in the Bible is a prime example of this. Joseph's life started off sounding like it was going to be the life everybody wanted. He was born with the silver spoon in his mouth. He was his daddy's favorite. He was spoiled rotten. But it wasn't too long before his brothers became jealous and sold him into slavery. From there, he was bought and placed as a servant in an officer's house, but then he was accused of raping the lady of the house. He gets thrown in prison by a false accusation, and now he has a reputation of a rapist. How is that fair? While in prison, he helped several imprisoned servants of Pharaoh interpret their dreams in return for them remembering him to Pharaoh so he could be released. But guess what? That didn't happen. They forgot him. He remained imprisoned for something he did not do, and years went by. How was this fair? He did nothing. He's separated from his family, accused and identified as something that he wasn't, and now forgotten in a cold, dark cell. For what? Why, God? Till one day, Pharaoh needed a dream interpreted. And they remembered, there's this guy. There's this guy that was in prison, and I think he does that. And they brought him to Pharaoh, and he interprets Pharaoh's dream, and Pharaoh finds favor with him. Or he has favor on Joseph and puts him in place in his palace to steward the resources during a famine. And this led to Joseph not only saving his family's life, but an entire nation. You see, had Joseph not endured the pain of being sold into slavery, his reputation being destroyed, being falsely accused and in prison, losing everything, being forgotten and left alone, he would never have been in the right place at the right time. Had he never been thrown into the pit, he would have never been in the palace. And had he never been stripped of his life, he would have never been able to save thousands of other people's lives. Our pain can either drive us to paralysis or drive us to purpose. When we trust the Father with our pain, He will ensure that our pain is not in vain. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. Harriet didn't allow her pain to paralyze her. She allowed it to point her in the direction of her purpose. It became her fuel. It became her why. She had the courage to not die in her pain, but use it so others could live. And we remember her today because she didn't give up when it got hard. See, the reason Harriet fought so hard for the slaves is because she remembered what it was like being one. She remembered the sting of the beatings. She remembered the torture. She remembered the desperation. When you remember the darkness of where you came from and what it took for you to get out, your compassion for others in that darkness is magnified. Your desire for others to know freedom is magnified. Harriet wasn't satisfied living in the comfort of her freedom when she knew that there were people still enslaved. Harriet wasn't satisfied just getting her immediate family to freedom when she knew that someone else's father, mother, sister, brother, daughter, son were still receiving beatings after beatings. I dare say that many of us have forgotten where we came from. We've forgotten how desperate we were. We've forgotten what it was like to be addicted or suicidal or homeless or afraid or miserable. We have forgotten what it feels like to be rejected and unwanted. We've become so comfortable in our luxury that we can't even relate to the enslaved anymore. If it requires us to sacrifice any of our creature comforts, it's an unreasonable request. If it requires more than a few dollars thrown in an offering bucket on the weekend, it's too much of an unreasonable request. If it requires me to do more than just throw up a prayer every now and then, it's too much of an unreasonable request. See, we have forgotten. Our pain was meant to be for the rescue of someone else. Our freedom was never meant to be hoarded. Freedom can only be fully lived when the experience is shared with others. Harriet's life was not a life of rainbows and unicorns. Her life was remarkable, but it wasn't because of that. It was a life filled with pain and disappointment, trouble, grief. But it was also a life full of purpose. Harriet led 70 slaves to freedom herself, over 13 missions with the Underground Railroad. She became a spy for the Union Army during the Civil War and led a 150-member infantry to free 750 slaves during a river raid. She remains one of the only women in U.S. history to ever lead an armed military expedition. See, Harriet's life was not without pain, but her pain was definitely not in vain. What would have happened to those 820 people had Harriet not pushed through her pain? Had Harriet not shown up? Had Harriet not pursued personal freedom? Had she decided to listen to the voice of the enemy that said, "It's not worth it, Minty. It's too hard, Minty. Just stay home. Just stay home. Minty, make the best of just being a slave. It's okay. Just make the best of it." How would history books be different today? None of us can escape life without pain. But every one of us get to decide if our pain will be in vain or if it will be the catalyst for someone else's rescue. I want to ask 2 questions this morning. My first question is, what are you willing to do to be free? Some of us are still slaves. We're slaves to different things. How bad do you want freedom? Minty said, "I'm going to be free or die." Have you gotten to that place? See, no one can make that decision for you. What are you willing to do to be free? Free from rage. Free from addiction? What about free from pornography? Are you willing to cut off your internet connection? Are you willing to install software and be accountable to somebody else? Are you willing to get rid of your smartphone and just use a flip phone that you can only use it as a phone? What about free from a contentious marriage? You're tired of being stuck in this contentious marriage. Are you willing to go to counseling? Are you willing to own your part in this? Are you willing to admit that you're wrong? Are you willing to lay all the cards out on the table and talk to somebody else who can speak into your life? Are you willing to do it? Are you willing to ask forgiveness when maybe you didn't do anything? How bad do you want to be free? What about generational poverty? You're tired of being stuck financially. You're tired of it. You feel like your feet are in concrete. Well, how tired of it are you? How willing are you? What are you willing to do to be free? Are you willing to meet with the accountability coach? Are you willing to give them your credit cards? Let them cut them up for you? Are you willing to live on a budget? Are you willing to allow somebody else to speak into your life and say, no, you can't do that? What about your poor health? What about that? All of us want to be healthy, but how bad do we want to be healthy? Are we willing to hire a coach and actually spend money on that so they can help us get to goals that we aren't disciplined enough to get ourselves to? How bad do you want to be free? My second question is this. Maybe you have experienced freedom and you are living in the comfort and the excitement and you're celebrating your freedom. What have you done with your freedom? Are you relaxing in the comfort of it while there are people still enslaved? They're still receiving beating after beating from the enemy. Galatians 5:1 says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Who have you helped find freedom now that you are free? Who have you gone back for? Now that you aren't depressed anymore, who have you rescued from depression? Now that you aren't addicted anymore, who have you gone back and rescued from addiction? Now that your marriage is healthier, whose marriage have you helped restore? Freedom is not for us to hoard. It's not about us living in our comforts while others die around us. Freedom can never be fully experienced until it is shared with others. Freedom is not free. It comes at a cost. We have to decide whether we're willing to pay it or not. I'd like to pray this morning for everyone. Bow your heads, please. Father, I thank you for today. I thank you that you speak through things like movies to us, that you're always speaking if we will just listen. Father, help us get to a place where we say, I will be free or die trying. Give us the determination to do whatever it takes to be free of the things that keep us in slavery. Help us not be distracted by the voice of the enemy that tells us that it's not worth it. It's too hard. Help us not be distracted when we encounter pain in the process and get stuck in the pain instead of keeping our focus on freedom. Father, use our pain for purpose. Help us not get comfortable in the freedom that we have attained, but partner with you in the rescue of others. And help us never forget where we came from. Give us courage to go back and pull others to freedom. In Jesus' name, amen. At CTP Pasadena, we always like to provide people with next steps to help apply the things that we talk about and that we learn. And if you're done being stuck, if you find yourself in that place today and you're like, you know what, I'm done. And I want freedom. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. It's awesome because we have an awesome opportunity for you. In October, we have Freedom Weekends coming up. It's a weekend for men and a weekend for women, and we would love for you to sign up and go with us. Anybody who has been to Freedom Weekend will tell you that it changed their life. So we're going to put a QR code on the screen today, and all you have to do is scan that code. It will open a link where you can register for Freedom Weekend. It's coming in October. But space is limited and it is filling very quickly. So please don't wait to register. Guys, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us online today. Again, we hope that you can make it next week in person so you can get the full experience. We'd love for you to get to see the clips. It's a lot more fun that way. Have some popcorn and some soda. But guys, thank you for joining online today, and we'll see you next week.
Welcome everyone watching online and here in person. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited for what God is going to do in this experience. If you're watching online, come in with your family. And if you're here in person, come grab your seat and set aside all distractions. We know that God has something special for each of us, so we invite you to lean in to what He might say to you through this experience. We also ask if you're watching online or if you're here with us in person, take a moment and share the stream with your friends and family. Just find this live stream on our Facebook page and you can hit that share button to put it right on your personal page so many other people can be a part of this experience. As you share it, comment in the chat where you're watching from and how many people are watching with you. And if you're attending online, we can still pray together with you for anything during this experience. All you have to do is enter in your prayer request in the chat portion of this feed. As our family by choice gathers around the city, in person and online, we invite you to join us together in worship.
Good morning, everyone. We're so excited to see you this morning. Let's put our popcorn down just for a little bit. You don't want to finish it yet. And we're just going to worship for a little bit.